Before he became one of the greatest scholars of Islam, he was a forgotten shepherd. No noble lineage, no wealth, no army. Just a young man guarding sheep beneath the burning skies of Makkah. Yet within a few years, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, "Whoever wishes to recite the Qur'an as fresh as it was revealed, let him recite according to the recitation of Abdullah ibn Abd." This is the remarkable story of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the shepherd who became one of the closest companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every morning, before the markets awakened and before the tribes gathered around the Kaaba, Abdullah guided someone else's sheep across the silent valleys of Makkah. He owned almost nothing, yet history was quietly preparing his name for eternity. Their owner trusted him completely. Every sheep, every drop of milk, every animal was an amana. Abdullah guarded that trust as if Allah himself were watching. One quiet morning, two travelers appeared across the valley. Their journey had already begun before sunrise. Neither carried an army, neither wore a crown, yet the world would one day remember their footsteps. The travelers greeted the young shepherd with kindness and asked if he could offer them some milk. The request was simple, but the answer revealed the character of a man destined for greatness. Abdullah lowered his eyes and replied honestly, "These sheep do not belong to me. I have no right to give what is not mine." He had not yet accepted Islam, but integrity had already found a home inside his heart. The stranger smiled and asked, "Is there a ewe that has never given milk?" Abdullah led him to a young ewe whose udder had never produced a single drop. By the permission of Allah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gently touched the animal and prayed. Moments later, milk flowed into a vessel before the astonished shepherd. For Abdullah, this was more than a miracle. It was the answer his heart had been searching for. The young shepherd embraced Islam, not because of wealth or power, but because the truth had become impossible to deny. From that day forward, his life no longer belonged to the desert. It belonged to revelation. Every verse descending from heaven would soon shape the heart of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He remained close to the Prophet, closer than many people realized. He carried his sandals, prepared water for his ablution, and guarded his privacy with quiet devotion, never seeking recognition. Those who frequently saw him entering and leaving the Prophet's home sometimes believed he was one of the Prophet's family because of how constantly he served him with humility and sincerity. At a time when the believers worshipped in secret and the Qur'an was recited only behind closed doors, Abdullah believed that the words of Allah were never meant to remain hidden forever. One day the companions asked, "Who will recite the Qur'an publicly before Quraysh?" Silence filled the gathering. Everyone understood the danger. Then Abdullah calmly said, "I will." Some companions urged him to reconsider, reminding him that he belonged to no powerful clan that could protect him. But his decision had already been made. The following morning, the leaders of Quraysh gathered around the Kaaba, while merchants traded and pilgrims walked among the idols. Abdullah stepped forward. His heart remained steady as his voice rose above the marketplace, reciting the opening verses of Surah Ar-Rahman. For a brief moment, the bustling city fell silent. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. The words of Allah echoed through the streets of Makkah like they never had before. The silence quickly gave way to anger. The chiefs of Quraysh rushed toward him and beat him severely. Yet Abdullah continued reciting until he could no longer continue. When he returned to the companions, they saw the marks of the assault upon him. Yet he said with unwavering determination that if they wished, he would return the next day and recite again. Faith had conquered fear.
The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recognized in Abdullah something far greater than wealth or lineage. He recognized sincerity, devotion, and an extraordinary love for the Qur'an. He once said, "Whoever wishes to recite the Qur'an exactly as it was revealed, let him recite according to the recitation of Abdullah ibn Abd." It was among the highest praises ever given to one of the Prophet's companions. As the years passed, the humble shepherd became one of the greatest teachers of the Qur'an. Students traveled long distances simply to hear him recite. His lessons were never about beautiful voices alone. He taught understanding, reflection, and living according to the Book of Allah. To Abdullah, the Qur'an was not merely something to be memorized. It was a way of life. His knowledge spread from Medina to Kufa, where generations of students carried his teachings across the Muslim world. Though his own voice eventually fell silent, the knowledge he shared continued to live in the hearts of countless believers. Near the end of his life, the shepherd, the devoted servant, and the fearless reciter looked back upon a life transformed completely by faith. He entered history without wealth, without influence, and without worldly power. Yet he departed as one of the greatest scholars of Islam and one of the closest companions of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. History remembers emperors, their palaces, their victories, and their names carved into stone. Yet time has buried countless kings beneath the dust. Their wealth vanished, their kingdoms collapsed, their voices faded into silence. But a humble shepherd, a man who owned almost nothing, still speaks to the world, not through his own words, but through the words of Allah. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud never sought power. He never built an empire. He never commanded vast armies. Instead, he devoted his life to preserving the Qur'an, living by it, teaching it, and carrying its light from one heart to another. More than 14 centuries have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. Civilizations have disappeared. But every time the Qur'an is recited with understanding, every time a student opens its pages seeking guidance, every time a believer chooses truth over fear, the legacy of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud lives on. Some people leave behind wealth, others leave behind kingdoms. But the greatest among humanity leave behind something that no army can defend, no fire can consume, and no passage of time can erase. Knowledge that guides, faith that transforms, and a legacy that draws hearts closer to Allah. May Allah be pleased with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the humble shepherd who became one of the greatest guardians of the Qur'an, whose voice fell silent on earth, yet whose influence continues to echo through every generation until this very day.